listen to the prompts, blah, blah, blah. I got to restart this, Cindy, because for some reason, I guess my third podcast, I'm starting to fumble.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Cindy. I'm so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to your audience this morning.
Will you join me in a meditation so we can ground in our breath? For the listeners, sometimes you guys are driving or you're having to use your visuals. So please, I want you to stay safe and I want those around you to stay safe. So please don't close your eyes, yet you're able to listen to the other prompts as I guide us in this meditation. So Cindy, please, if you want to take a moment just to close your eyes and begin breathing in and out through your nose. And bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. Don't try to control your breath. Just observe the rhythm while staying focused with your breath. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up in your body. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into your body. Keep your awareness on your breath. Continue keeping your awareness on your breath. Continue staying with your breath. And at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
I think it's much slower now.
Can you let the listeners know who Cindy is?
Well, I have a hard time defining myself simply because I kind of like to do a lot of things. But I say I'm a resiliency expert for women in the midlife. And I'm a physician and a mom and a healer.
Can you give us the definition of what resilience is?
To me, resilience is just not letting whatever your past was define your future, and also whatever. So it's not only just what some people think of as mistakes maybe they've made in their life that they wish would have gone differently, but also generational patterns, generational limitations. So many people think they can't do more than what the people in their past have done generationally, and I'm just here to smash that belief.
You mentioned that you're a healer. Can you open that up more for the listeners?
Yeah, so I have been a physician. I'm an internal medicine doctor working in the hospital setting for 30 years. And it kind of dawned on me about 10 years ago that I wasn't really healing anybody. I was just making vital signs look better, blood work look better, cutting off this, pouring this chemo in, but nothing was healing the root cause of all of what I saw. It's one thing to, if you have a headache, I'll take it down to a very simple thing. If you have a headache because you're not eating well and you're chronically dehydrated and you're not, sleeping, eating, or drinking adequately, but you just want to take a Motrin to get rid of the headache, did you really heal the headache? You just got rid of the pain. So let's come over here. Let's go 3 steps back and see what caused all that pain. And so I've done this for 30 years, over here on this side, which is getting rid of the symptoms. But now the true healer part of me, I have spent the last 4 years of my life since this wonderful gift of time that the pandemic gifted me, and to learn a lot of new skills, get certified in a lot of new tools. And I literally help people identify generational blocks that are helping them, that are hindering them from not only living ideal health, but just being who they want to be in the world. And so I'm really getting to the root of it all, which is in our subconscious mind, and helping people believe bigger for themselves and see how they can do it effortlessly.
I almost died 10 years ago. So I had lesions in
Oh,
my stem and cerebellum, and
wow.
I was almost hospitalized, like almost 40 days. So, I went through a battery of tests, lumbar punctures and biopsies and radiation put in me just for them to be, it's atypical, but we don't know what's causing it. So it really gave me a seat to the nervous system and really understanding how trauma impacts how our defense mechanisms, that's what I call the ego of the nervous system, blocks us from being in our authentic self, our self, our worth, our vulnerability. And I know that, there's messages of kill the ego, kill that. And it's like, well, you need your nervous system to navigate this world. And it's recognizing, okay, how are you facing yourself? I understand the body, and I went through a lot of pain. I had to learn how to walk and think and all that. And so what I know to be true in this lifetime and what it is with the body is, in the Western world, we've created such an aversion to pain that people don't even know how to listen to the messages. They don't even know how to listen to the messages in their body. And the reason being is they don't know how to face themselves. They don't know how to, healing comes from safety in the nervous system and radical honesty. And if you don't have honesty with yourself, you're not able to reveal the things that are causing this disconnection and this conflict inside.
Absolutely. I have two things to say, but the first one is, what did you say that you had with your cerebellum?
Lesions. They were
Oh,
lesions.
lesions.
Yeah, my cerebellum and my brainstem.
Okay. Well, sorry you were in the hospital system for 40 days. I just want to acknowledge that. What a stressful time that must have been to your body. And here you are 10 years later, just a radiant beauty, full of life. So, um, guessing that everything turned out fine and it never came back, whatever that was. But then the other thing I wanted to say is I have found through my healing work and how I heal women in their midlife is that we women try to block emotions. Like we see sadness and we're like, no, 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 I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. Let me just go for a walk. Let me distract myself. Or we see anger and we don't speak up. Or, name the emotion. I deal mostly in anger, sadness, guilt, and fear. And if we don't let ourselves feel those four emotions, they are there for us to teach us something that this beautiful world, I call it Life Lab. It's like a life lab. It's here to teach us lessons. But if we block it all the time, we're not learning anything. So I love what you said there, that absolutely the world is here to teach us. And I don't know why our ego tries to block it. I don't know if we're afraid to feel emotions, but if you really do let them move through your body, you'll get the learning and then you'll realize, wow, I feel so much better now. And then you can move on with your day.
Yeah, and a lot of that was taught behavior of certain emotions were not tolerated in society. As children, where I tell people to connect back into their intuition. I'm like, okay, well, we're feeling bodies that think. When you were a child, you probably went into a room and you said, oh, something feels off. But the adult said, oh, no, 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 there's nothing wrong. Nothing's going on. So you started not listening to your intuition and you believed the people that had your best interests were telling the truth. Meanwhile, they were lying to you. And you actually felt that there was some emotion, something going on. So then it kind of reverses things in you So then you start to live a lie because I can't present what I'm actually feeling or thinking because the adults are telling me not to think or feel this way. Which then when you want to present honesty, it's like, oh, but I've been wrapped up in such a lie. And this is all so confusing. Really, what is, and that's why I say it's radical honesty. Because you're going to have to, and I always say, befriend anger, befriend rage, befriend the fear. Like this love or fear. It's like, well, the nervous system, to have a healthy nervous system, you need fear. And a healthy nervous system doesn't mean it's regulated and kumbaya and it doesn't feel anything. A regulated nervous system means that it can get dysregulated and come back into regulation. It's your gas pedal and your brake, that you can use the two and you're not just on one and you're not on just on the other. Really understanding the way that your vehicle works in. And yeah, we've been indoctrinated and I totally, our bodies are vessels. They're almost like radio transmitters. So when you start to really feel your emotions and recognize that they aren't who you are, it's not your identity, it's a feeling and the messages that come up. Yet as women, we've been battered with, oh, well, you're emotionally imbalanced because you have these mood swings where it's like, since when? I think, not really recognizing what the human experience really can be in the depth of it. When COVID hit, what had you looking more in depth? What really opened you up to wake up to that?
Yeah, well, before I tell you that, I was gonna say, you were talking, you call them gas pedals. How I think of it, is there's a housing system in our brain for all these emotions. And, I believe in the Gestalt theory. So I call them Gestalt, and they're like bags of emotion. They're supposed to go up and they're supposed to go down. And there's one for anger and one for sadness. And, if anger, you never deal with it, then it fills up and then all you are is rage all the time. And if sadness, if you never let yourself feel sadness, overflowing is depression all the time. Same with guilt, overflows is into shame, and then fear overflows is into anxiety. And when you go see a doctor, they do exactly what you just said. They said, you're feeling too much. So let's just dampen down that feeling of that emotion. And they pour you on all these, pills. And it never even got rid of just like, how about let's just express the fear? Talk to the people that are making us fearful, or talk to the emotions that are making us so angry. Talk about the things in our life, like that are our spouses or our bosses or whatever that might be making us angry. So, I also am a firm believer that women are just silenced and muzzled. I don't know what that is. My daughter's a psychology major right now, so I've often, over these past 4 years, she is learning things that I never learned as a genetics major. And I'm just wondering what made one gender get to tell the other gender that they are being too much and they're too histrionic or too emotional, and that, their place is just in this one little place over here, their place in the world. But anyway, so yeah, it's really brought a lot to, as the pandemic happened and my older child went off to college, is also the time when I started my healing journey. And so I can't tease all that out. And just to be really honest, it's not a, a shining moment of my life, but the pandemic kind of almost like took the scab off or took my headphones off so I could understand what was going on. But I had a sucky marriage and I had a sucky job, and I had spent my whole life when I was almost 50 years old, had this marriage that looked so great on the outside, these two beautiful kids, and look at us in this pretty white house with it was just loveless. He wouldn't listen to me. I was always trying to talk about things that we needed us to work on, and he just silent treatment. And I just stuck it because we have two kids together, and I'm like, this is my husband, for better or for worse, and I just didn't say anything. But now we're all in the house together all the time. And then I had been telling him I wasn't happy being a full-time doctor. I wanted to branch out in the online coaching world. And he was he was literally not letting me have an opinion on that because he wanted me to have the benefits of the 401k and the health insurance for the kids and all this. And I was not able to, as a 50-year-old doctor, speak up for myself because of just societal expectations. Stay in your box. And that pandemic just like magnified, took the earphones off, put the magnifying glasses on. We got a lot of spotlight, and like the universe is saying, you're going to deal with this right now. And so I enrolled in a couple of courses, and the one that just blew my mind was a subconscious clear out, like a trauma release program. And, it was a 12-week program. And it's actually what I bring to the world now, because it took me from being this lonely, misunderstood, silenced, disgruntled wife and full-time doctor. And it completely changed my life. And now I did leave my kid's dad. I left him. And I did leave my full-time job. And so now I am a doctor in a way that really fills me up, where I just get to work when I want to, and I get to serve different communities in the capacity I want to. And then I also get to really fulfill my passion, which is helping women not feel so alone and so silenced and so small, And so, it was just, the pandemic was such a gift for me and my family, even though it was so painful to leave their dad, and, just to see your kids crying like that, and moving out, and just having all this stuff separate now. But it was just the best thing that happened to me. Sorry if that was a little bit too vulnerable, but I just see no reason in not telling you the truth. You asked the question, so that's what it was, girl. It was awesome. It was like an implosion, like a demolition, and now it's a beautiful life, So wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. This is what I'm creating, is cultivating these spaces of vulnerability. And, people want to show this kind of transformation where it's polished, where it's like, oh, there's a messy part and it's painful. Truth is painful, because once you start seeing what you have tolerated, what you have not done, where you've been grasping for belonging, validation, for safety, and you've offloaded all of this responsibility on the outside of you, that's painful to have to recognize and see. That's why I say that radical honesty to face yourself is like brutal, because the defense mechanisms of the nervous system's like, well, this is what's keeping you safe. Like, this is your little box. Even though, like you said, the lovelessness, I didn't have a voice. I'm earning all this stuff. I should have a say. Like, what the frick? I don't get to vote. Like, what the heck is this? And so really understanding your nervous system of these defense mechanisms of, I created this belief system that created this illusion that would keep me protected, yet I didn't even realize how much of a prisoner I was in.
100%. And like, when you realize that, and you see, and I'm still, it's been pretty fresh. It's just 2.5 years ago that I actually left. And for 2 years, I feel like all I did was sleep and eat, And of course, I was working and taking care of my kids and myself, but it was so traumatizing. I didn't even realize what I was living in. And I said to myself one day, I said, Cindy, you're staying in this relationship for your kids, but would you want this relationship for your daughter? And I could see there were 7 people in my life, like the closest relatives of mine, that had been urging me that it wasn't a good situation for me to be in, but I couldn't see it because I was doing what was right for my kids, and that's what moms do. And then when I finally realized, when the kids were in college and the senior in high school, I said, would I want this for either of my kids? And I said, no. And I'm like, who are you doing this for then? Like, societal expectations, like enough is enough. It's been really amazing watching how as a mom, you think your kids are going to kind of fall apart when that happens, and nothing of the sort happened. It's almost like we could kind of like address the elephant in the room, and everybody kind of became their authentic selves. And I just got to see my kids blossom in another way, and they got to see their dad for who he was. And nothing against him. It just wasn't, he wasn't right for me. And so it was also good to a really good life lab to tell the kids, just whenever you get married, if you do, and when you do, just make sure you're with someone that can grow with you.
Hmm.
That y'all can kind of have a give and take of your whole marriage together. And if it ever ends up only benefiting one person and not the other, then instead of just putting blinders on and just acting like it's not happening, be truthful. I love your concept of radical honesty. So it's just felt so much better to be authentic.
Did you recognize that you were going through grief?
Mm, I never really thought about that. No, just loss of what I thought would be.
And
Yeah.
to put down the person that you were, that that character and those beliefs,
Mm,
and go into uncertainty and unknown. There was a loss. Dismantling of a marriage and everything of that narrative that created, that's grief.
mm. Yeah, good point. And I don't really think I've ever kind of labeled it like that or processed it like that. I just see it as trauma that I was getting over. And but yeah, it is. It's like you've lost and marriage is the dissolution of a marriage is hard because it's not a death and that person's now dead. That other person is still alive. What's dead is the marriage. And what, so yeah, it's like a living death and it kind of never goes away. I
Yeah.
actually just saw him last night. And so, you see, when you have kids with someone too, you see each other all the time. And I'm just trying to do my best to show grace and forgiveness. But yeah, I guess I have been in the process of grieving that loss
Yeah.
for these last
It's
2.5 years.
it's like it's not one or the other. There's excitement because there's freedom, yet there's also the part where there's grief and sadness and anger and frustration. So the same thing that you're saying, it's like, oh, the dimensions of all these emotions that come up all at once, and trying to navigate through all that and make sense of it, where it's like, and like you said, the definition, well, somebody didn't die, and it's like, no, let's change this definition that somebody has to die with grief.
Yeah.
Because psychologically, if you lose a job, marriage dissolves, lose a house, have to move, those are traumatic because it's overloading your system. Yet there's also a loss in that. And that's what grief is, because your nervous system doesn't know the difference between if somebody dies or if you lost a job. It's the same fear that comes up. It's the same overwhelm of something's not right. Our situation has changed.
Yeah.
And so all these
Yeah.
definitions that you had constructed are all crumbling down. So now it's like, oh, so hold that space of grief also, and
Yeah.
allow, like, and be in the I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable to be in that space, but I really thank you for that vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, one thing I realized too, that I think this is common for women, maybe men too, but I've never been a man, so I don't know. But if we're uncomfortable dealing with the sadness and with the grief, sometimes we like to numb up. And I don't do this. I don't drink a lot or shop a lot, but I would find that I would eat a lot of things I wouldn't eat, like comfort foods. And then I would find that I would go and sign up for courses to give me that sense of belonging. Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs, and one of my biggest ones, when I test myself, is for community and belonging. And and when you don't have that in a marriage anymore, even though the marriage was kind of like, not serving you, and your kids go away, right? Because now I'm an empty nester. Then I realized what I was doing. It was signing up for too many courses, and those weren't even serving me because I wasn't trusting my own intuition. I was like trusting the leader or trusting this hive mentality, the beehive of all the people, what they thought about me. And when you finally break away from that and you realize that you got you, that's really the true freedom. because then you're not covering up that grief and sadness with all this extra activity and expenses, but you are your own home. And it's just been so amazing to see that I am secure in my attachment to myself.
Wow, beautiful. I love that. I want to bring you into a reflective question.
Okay.
I want to ask you to take your awareness right now and go back to your 18-year-old self. And you're able to tell your 18-year-old self 3 words to carry you through the journey to now. What would they be?
Does it have to be single words? Because
Whatever you.
I want to say you are enough, you know? So you
Yeah,
are enough.
yeah.
Self-love and trust. Because I just don't think I was able to trust myself enough back then. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. I love that.
It's a big one. Now, I'm sure there's many people that heard this and now they want to know, where can I find Cindy? So can you let them
Mhm.
know where they can find you?
Yes, I have this beautiful website that I just changed with updated pictures, drscindystarke.com. It's just my name and DR as the doctor, not the full spelled out word. And then I have an E on the end of my name. And everything there, people can, I open up my calendar to people because I just have such a heart for helping people. And I open up my calendar for 15-minute spark calls just to see if we have a connection so I could help them with something. Then my social media that is links are on there, and also my book that I wrote a few years ago. And that's where it's kind of all housed in one package.
And what's the book called?
It's called From Fear and Failure to the Finish Line. And it is a story about how I did an Ironman triathlon in my late 40s. And I actually failed on my first attempt at the triathlon. And then I repeated because of a simple mistake I had made in calculations of time. And then I repeated the training, and then I made it to a finish line. So it's all, again, it's just about how not people don't need to let the fear and mistakes and generational things of their past define their future. So it's all the same soul message. I'm just trying to help people in any way I can learn from, just learn how limitless they really are, no matter what they've done in their past.
Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners?
Just don't let failure define you. And no matter how bad things are right now, step by step and with the right support, you can get through it and live whatever your dream life is.
Are you willing to share what your intention was during the meditation?
Mm. Yeah, my intention was for people to be able to, through listening to my message and whatever was going to come out in this intuitive guided talk that we had, that they could expand what they thought was possible for them after listening to our conversation today.
And I think that was well served in this conversation, because when we're vulnerable, the relating is there. So people can see a glimpse of themselves in the story and allow themselves to have acceptance of the messiness, to be able to forge in the wilderness of, truth.
Yeah, and self-discovery. I think, like you said at the very beginning, that people are afraid of the self-discovering and self-healing. I think because they think it's going to be too hard, but it's not. I always tell my kids what's hard is staying in the past and not facing it, So just don't be afraid of the unknown.
Thank you so much for being a guest and sharing your story and the light that you're bringing out into the world. You've really done the alchemy of taking your impurities and turning them into gold and offering them to others. So thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me speak to your audience today.
Remember to be kind to yourself.
Will do.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.